When it comes to plugin development in Sublime Text, one of the most common questions we get is, where are the tutorials? How do I learn how to do this? And historically, the answer to that question has been, there really aren't any. Well, the long wait is finally over, and the anticipated plugin development course is now launching on the channel today, right now, in this video that you're watching right now. So whether you want to get into plugin development to create the next great package, or you just want to learn a little bit more about how Sublime Text works behind the scenes, this is one video you're not going to want to miss. Hello, fellow Sublime Text fanatics. Odat Nerd here, and welcome to this introductory video in the Plugin 101 video series. Now, here in this introduction, we're not going to be doing any tutorials just yet. We want to set the stage for what you can expect from this video series going forward, what will and will not be in these videos, and how they're all going to work out to give you an idea of what is upcoming. Now, to start off with, the first question anybody might have if they're watching this video, particularly if you don't think you're interested in plugin development in Sublime Text, in which case don't click away just yet. There is perhaps a reason why you might want to hang out here. Remember, when we're talking about plugin development in Sublime Text, we're really also talking about package development in Sublime Text as well. These things go hand in hand. Now, Sublime is configured by way of packages. It ships with a lot of packages. Package control has a ton of other packages as well. These, as we know, extend the functionalities of Sublime Text. By and large, that is plugins, but also other things as well, because packages can contain a multitude of files that tell Sublime how to behave. Things like syntaxes for syntax definitions, color schemes, themes, modifications to the menu. There are a lot of resources that can appear inside of a package. We're going to cover all of those in this video series, although we will be dealing primarily with the Python plugin aspect here in the initial stages of this. But all of this stuff goes hand in hand. So there's a variety of reasons why you might want to know all of this information. There may be functionality that you think is missing in Sublime, and you want to be the one to add it for yourself or for sharing with others, and you just don't have the knowledge of how to actually do that. We're going to hopefully teach you how to do that here. Of course, you may already have existing packages that you're using, including those packages that ship with Sublime Text, because you might be surprised to know that a large segment of the functionality that ships with Sublime out of the box as soon as you install it without installing anything else is actually done via packages and plugins that it ships with. There is, of course, some code right in the core application for speed reasons, but by and large, a lot of functionality comes in plugins as well. So you could tweak those things up. And remember that you, as a user of Sublime Text, have a user package. That's the place where your configurations and key bindings and things like that go. So whether you realized it or not, by configuring Sublime to the way you want it to work, you are yourself already a package developer. Congratulations. We're going to teach you a little bit more about that, but that does point out that you could really use the information in this to really configure Sublime and get it working exactly the way that you want. And of course, the other reason, and this is the reason why I originally got into plugin development in Sublime Text in the first place, is so much of its functionality is defined by plugins and other packages that by knowing how to create them and how they work and how things are working behind the scenes, you gain a deeper understanding of how the whole application works and why some things work this way and why some things work that way or are not possible, and how everything ties together. And that sort of understanding can really elevate your usage and understanding of Sublime and make it that much easier to use. So with all of that blither blather out of the way, let's jump into the meat of what we're going to be covering in this particular course. Plugin and package development in Sublime Text might seem daunting when you first get into it. When you go looking around for information, you find perhaps nothing, or perhaps a mountain of information that doesn't seem like it's very well explained, or is using jargon and terms that you're unfamiliar with, or it's written in a way that assumes you already know how things work when they don't, and that can make it very tricky to learn. So I thought in this introductory video, we would go over what we're going to cover and not cover in the video series to give you a good handle on what is going to be coming here. Now, the first thing we're going to cover in the video series is this idea: don't panic. Yes, there is a lot of information on plugins and packages in Sublime Text. Yes, you do eventually need to know it. No, you don't need to have it completely rote and memorized in the back of your head. You certainly don't need to have that ready on day one. This is a building, learning process. Start small, work big, build your knowledge up. Even the best plugin and package authors out there don't remember absolutely everything off of the top of their head. We are all looking at the documentation, reminding ourselves of things we've forgotten, learning new things that we didn't previously know before, making bugs which, when they're finally solved, seem kind of silly by comparison, and we are all asking each other questions. So, whatever you might be feeling about your ability to do this, just know you are not alone. We have literally all been where you are right now, and we're here to help you get to where we are now as well. So it is not insurmountable. The first thing we're going to cover in this video series is the fundamentals of package and plugin development. So we're going to learn things like what packages actually are, what formats do they exist in, where they can be installed, and what they can actually contain, which is a variety of different resource files. And for each of those resource files, we're then going to talk about what that file type is for and how to get the most out of it and what you'd use it for inside of a plugin. When it comes to package resources, the first one we're going to focus on is the Python plugin, which I believe is the one that most people are interested in learning at first blush. And in that regard, we are going to be doing a deep dive into the Sublime Text plugin API, covering all the things like the classes and what they're for, and how plugins come together and tie together into a cohesive organism, and how they interact with Sublime Text as well. Now, that's the sort of things we'll be covering in this video series. There's a few things that we won't be covering, and one of those is how to write Python code. We're going to assume throughout the series of videos here that you are conversant enough with Python to be able to write code or at least follow along. Now, if you're not a developer, don't panic, don't turn off the video. Python is a very easy language to learn. It was designed that way. The internet is chock-a-block full of free resources that will help you learn how to write Python if you're unfamiliar with it. If you're already a Python developer, then you're golden. And if you're a developer but you don't use Python, I think you're going to find that the information you already know about whatever programming languages you're using are going to be able to transfer over just fine to Python. In just a second, we're going to cover what you need to get started on your journey of plugin and package development. But before we do that, one last thing to say about the videos themselves is that they are a video series, unsurprisingly. So each video will build on the information from prior videos in the series. The description of every video, therefore, will have a link to the full overall playlist of all videos that have been released to date, so you can skip around as needed to find the information that you're missing. And we'll also be including some cross-reference links to other videos in the series that relate to the topics in this video series as those other videos become available as well. And I would also like to point out that the length of these videos is going to vary. I thought about this. Should all of the videos be short and sweet, but 1,000 of them? Or should there be 3 videos, each 12 hours long? And my final determination was each video was going to be as long as it needs to be. There's already information out there that on package and plugin development that is perhaps not as informative as it could be. So I don't really see the point in trying to cover a topic that maybe might take 35, 40 minutes to really get an in-depth understanding of in just 5 minutes. If you're here watching videos because you want to learn to be a package developer, you probably actually want to have the useful information and not the 5-minute synopsis. So expect the video sizes to fluctuate as we go on. But now all that's out of the way, let's go ahead and jump on into the last part of this bad boy, where we're going to talk about what you need to get started on your journey to package development. So what do we need in order to get started in Sublime Text? Now, if you're used to using some other software, you might think that there's a variety of things you need to go out and find, like a plugin SDK or something along those lines. In Sublime, the only thing you need to install is Sublime itself. It comes pre-packaged with everything you need in order to be a plugin and package developer. Now, of course, there are other things you can add onto it, packages, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But the core experience, you just need a Sublime. Now, are plugins in Sublime written in Python? Yes. However, Sublime comes pre-packaged and ships with an embedded copy of Python right in its own executable that it uses for its plugin system. So you don't need to have a copy of Python installed on your system. And if you do, Sublime doesn't care. It's going to use its embedded version anyway. Now, with all of that said, we are going to see me using some other packages throughout the course of these videos. So I thought we'd go ahead and talk about them here in this video, and then it's easy to link to when there are questions. Now, the first video on the first package on this list, rather, which you see in practically every other video that has appeared on this channel, whether it's part of this series or not, is the package dev package. And what better place to mention it than here in a video series on plugin and package development? Now, it does contain a lot of tools that make your life in Sublime a lot easier as a package developer. And as we've seen through all the other videos on this channel, it's just also great for usage in Sublime in general, even if you're not a package developer. So we're going to be seeing that here. Now, although it does have a lot of functionality for creating files for you and pre-formatting and laying parts of them out, when it comes to those particular aspects, we will be showing you how to do it completely manually first so you understand exactly what it is that's happening, why it's working the way that it is. And then you can, once you have that solid understanding, use package dev to do the heavy lifting and all of the boilerplate work. But you do want to have that solid understanding of what's actually happening behind the scenes. And you're also going to see a lot of syntax highlighting that package dev adds to various package resource files that Sublime wouldn't display on its own. The other package that we're going to be talking about in these videos is going to be the terminus package for the rare instances I foresee coming up when we might need to drop to the command line to run a command or look at a directory listing or something along those lines. We're going to use terminus for that. It is right inside of Sublime. It works across Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. It's also one of those packages I recommend just on general principles. If any of the things that it does sound even vaguely useful, it's probably at least 100 times more useful than you think it's going to be. So you'll see me using that as well. And the last packages to talk about here are Snappy/HyperHelp. Those are actually packages that I've written. They're not officially released as of yet. There's a video on the channel, in fact, two of the first three videos that appeared on this channel way back in April of last year when I first started doing weekly uploads cover these two things. Now, what do? HyperHelp installs a system of help directly inside of Sublime, similar to what you might expect from things like Vim and Emacs and other editors that have a textual-based help system built right in. Snappy builds upon that by providing context-aware, interlinked, hyperlinked help for the Sublime Text API and some other parts of Sublime as well. So you're going to see me whenever we're talking about plugin APIs and looking at things using the HyperHelp package and the Snappy package to do that. And if you're not already using those packages, the links to the videos down below will have the instructions for how to install those particular packages. Now, the last thing to say here is that my configuration files that I use for the copy of Sublime that I use for these videos is linked down in the description of every video on the channel, as a matter of fact. So if at any point you ever see me doing something in Sublime that your copy doesn't do, you can look in there to see what exactly I might have configured to make it do that. And of course, always feel free to drop a question down in the comment section of any video if you have any questions about that as well. Lastly, let's talk about some important resources that you should have at your fingertips while you're getting started on this journey. And we're going to be referring to these throughout the video series, but we're also going to be discussing in detail as well. And the first one of these is the official documentation for Sublime, which is available on the web. Now, some of this information isn't as full-fledged, shall we say, at the current time of this recording that as we might like. However, However, right now, if you're in the Sublime Text Discord, which we're going to talk about in just a second, Will, one of the developers of Sublime, has some new documentation queued up that's going to be coming out real soon, along with some fun new announcements for you if you aren't already in the Discord and don't already know what those announcements are. So that documentation will be getting better. That's going to be linked down in the description of every video. Also, highly recommend the unofficial documentation for Sublime Text, which has been around for a while. It's now at a new URL. If you had the old URL bookmarked, there's now a new one that's also linked down in the description of all of these videos as well. And that's going to have a lot of information that augments the existing official documentation. And in fact, since that unofficial documentation was written, there's now some official documentation for some of those topics. So it's actively being massaged and maintained to bring everything up to snuff. And the last couple of things we're going to talk about here is the Sublime Text Forum. That is a great place to ask questions while you're on your package development journey. And you can also look on there to see if other people have asked similar questions. Remember, there are a few different sections on the forum. So when it comes to creating a question, if you have something that's plugin related, you might want to drop that into the plugin section on the forum to make sure that the people that are most likely to answer it know that that question is available. And lastly, a great resource, the Sublime Text Discord. This is actually linked from the very first topic that you'll see in the Sublime forum. There's a pinned post there on resources that will make your life in Sublime a little bit more sublime, as I like to say. And down near the bottom, there's a link to the official or unofficial, but sort of official Discord for Sublime. And that's also linked down in the description of this video as well. On the Discord, you will find some of the developers of Sublime and the members of the community, the more active members of the community. So if you have any questions or things of that nature, the Discord is a great place to drop in and ask questions as well. Now, whether you use the forum or Discord kind of depends on the sort of question you're asking. The Discord is good for the sorts of questions that are going to require a lot of back and forth, whereas the forum is better for how do I do this and then get a canonical written answer that other people can refer to. But these are all great resources that will make your life in the Sublime Text package ecosystem developers that much better. We are poised on the precipice and ready to leap off into the wonderful world of package and plugin development in Sublime. Now, this leap may seem scary and daunting if you're new to it, so I'm going to leave you with 4 pieces of advice here to close out this video. And the first of those is, remember that documentation that we talked about? Go ahead and give that a skim. Don't think that you need to memorize that documentation at all. Be familiar with it. You don't need to know it forwards, backwards, and upside down. It's always going to be there. You can go look when you need to. Don't be daunted by that. Remember also, as tip number 2, that all of these topics really interconnect with each other. So as you're looking up something, you're very likely to find 3, 4, 5 different things it's talking about that make absolutely no sense whatsoever while you're reading it. That's okay. You just don't have that experience yet. Every time you go back to look at the documentation, you're going to have more knowledge than you had the last time you looked. And you're going to find over time that the things that you didn't understand before are going to make a lot more sense now. These things come with time. And speaking of that, it's always a good idea to practice, practice, practice. Practice, practice. Practice your package and plugin development. Now, we haven't really gotten to that point yet because this is just the introduction, but remember, the best package developers out there learned by doing. There wasn't tutorials like this. They looked at what was out there, what other plugins existed that ship with Sublime or elsewhere. How do these plugins work? I want to try something like that, even the simplest, most throwaway plugins, just to get a sense for how things work. Practice, practice, practice. Every time you do it, it gets a little bit easier. And lastly, remember, nobody develops in a vacuum. There is a support system out there for you in the Sublime Text forum and the Sublime Text Discord, and even an IRC channel, which I didn't mention previously, but is linked in that forum post that I discussed earlier with resources for Sublime Text. those places are full of other people just like yourself at varying levels of knowledge. If you have any questions or concerns, do not be afraid to reach out to your fellow developers. We're really all here to help each other. And that's all I have for this introduction. The next video is going to have a lot more juicy actual content in it, I promise. But I wanted to get this one out of the way to set expectations for what is to come. So that's all we have for this video. Remember to use the buttons down below to thumb, subscribe, and share as you deem appropriate so you do not miss out on the next videos when they become available. If you have any questions, comments, requests for clarification on anything I talked about in this video, drop it down in the comment section below. And until the next video, this is ODAT Nerd asking you to please have a sublime day.